Okay, all right. So I'm gonna share my screen now, and then we'll go over the 1.26 release notes, and then afterwards we'll have our CTO Fede come on stage and present a demo of the strategy V2 framework. So we released these release notes yesterday. So the main as I mentioned, the big feature in this release was a revamp of the V2 framework. So we launched the V2 framework a few months ago, and in the initial version, we had a bunch of different components that people could use as Lego blocks to create more powerful strategies. But over time, we realized that some of the components we added weren't necessary, and so we've taken a step now to kind of really streamline, improve the framework, and make it easier to use. So that's what Fede is going to demonstrate afterwards. But in addition, we also have a bunch of new connectors in this release that should make it a lot easier for people to use Hummingbot in many more places. We now have a new connector to the OKX perpetual futures markets. OKX, I believe, is the number 2 or number 3 top perpetual exchange. So having a perpetual futures markets allowing Hummingbot users to trade on those markets will be a huge for both OKX and for the Hummingbot community. In addition, due to Bounty, we also improved the Kraken connector in this release. Kraken, we've had the connector for a while, but it was out of date. And so a lot of people, especially in the US, especially like where I'm based, where Kraken is one of the only exchanges that we can access, had a lot of issues using the legacy connector. So about a few months ago, there was a improvement proposal that funded a bounty to fix the connector. And so now there's a new version that's updated, and it should work a lot better than what we had before. We're also excited to welcome 2 new exchanges to the codebase, Bitrue as well as Osmosis. In addition, we also have new connector guides to Vega, Dexalot, and Osmosis. They also added a guide along with the connector itself. So, but the highlight of this release was really the improvements to the V2 framework. So this time we've introduced the concept of a market data provider. In the past, the way that Hummingbot was architected, every bot had to instantiate and connect and fetch data from all the markets that it was connected to. But that caused an issue when you were running multiple bots on many different exchanges, because you had this issue where you would have to essentially, kind of like you have to suck up all the rate limits a lot faster. So now we have a single unified point of access for all data, which is a market data provider. And that data provider can be accessed by multiple strategies running within the same bot, so that you're more efficient and you're accessing the same data from different places. Let me just see if there's any questions in the audience. Yeah, you're welcome to add questions in the chat. I'll try to check this and throughout the chat and try to answer questions along the way. So the other kind of big benefit of the V2 framework we've added this time is really the ability to easily kind of add parameters to just your strategy, or to parameters and kind of separate your strategy into a controller so that you can run a script with multiple controller configurations. And that's really helpful because in the past, the way that people use Hummingbot was they would literally deploy an instance for every single trading pair that they wanted to run. So users ended up with running hundreds of bots to do what they need to do. But now, because you can now run a single script with multiple controllers and multiple configurations, now you can run as many as you want in theory within one single instance. So I think that makes Hummingbot a lot more scalable, and we think that the approach that we want to try to have people take is to have different strategies, but be able to run those strategies at scale across many different pairs, across many different exchange combinations, and really try to manage a system that is allocating capital to the ones that are working and removing capital from the ones that are not working. So it's almost like a portfolio allocation, running a fleet of bots as opposed to running a single bot. The other thing we're excited about in this release was, so one of the concepts of the V2 framework is a separation of concerns. So there's a concept of an executor where you can basically program this component and have it manage itself. This is really great if you have a perpetual position and you need to take profits, stop losses, and trailing stops. And so now you can embed all that logic and have each position basically manage itself using its own logic. So as part of that, we've also created a new executor type called a TWAP executor. This is an executor that automates a process of buying or selling a quantity of tokens at a specific price over a span of time. So you can imagine some of the things you want to control there are the amount of time, the price, like the price limits and those kind of things. So we've also kind of abstracted that into its own component. So there's also a sample strategy that you can run, but I think the overall idea behind the V2 framework is that this is really just a box of Legos that you can take and mix and match in different ways to create really powerful strategies. So I think this is something that it's easier to understand once you see it in action rather than me just describing it. So that's why instead of just talking more, I'm going to hand it over to Fede, who is going to give a demo of how it works in action. Let me invite Fede on the stage here. Give me 1 second. There he is. So yeah, welcome Fede. So I set the stage for you. I didn't want to go into too much detail, but I think it'd be better for you to just show people what you've built rather than me describing it.